Football made simple. Become great at your craft by finding ways to make it simple for those around you. This is the Coaching 101 podcast hosted by Find a Way Productions with your co-host Daniel Chamberlain and Kenny Simpson. What's up, coaches? This is the Coaching 101 podcast. I'm Daniel Chamberlain here with Coach Kenny Simpson. Coach, how's Northeast Arkansas this week?
Well, or I keep saying it every week. I feel like we're finally getting into football weather, and we are getting into football weather now. And big weekend. I think probably every level of football's going now, so it's been enjoyable. Our coaches meeting. I'm trying to handle the meeting and keep track of the Dolphins score. I'm a big Miami Dolphin fan, and so it was a good day for me. I got to come home just in time to see into the game, and Tua and Tyreek Hill beat the Chargers by themselves pretty much. So that was really fun to watch.
I've not dealt with fantasy football in probably took a 5-year break, and I jumped back in this year for money, $20 on the season. Or, I think winner gets all or something. And your Dolphins defense is going to cost me this week. So
they're not very good. And our defense is not very good. No,
pretty upset with that. But
not at all. No, if you took Tyreek, you'd have been in a good spot.
Yeah, I had some pretty good outing. They not so hot, but that's okay. The defense thing is, I feel like you always have to let them play out for a week or three. You never know who's going to be great because it just, who do they play? The matchups are wild, right? You don't know what the offense is going to do.
Right. Well, one of the things we do with our staff, which I think is kind of a fun thing, is we do a pick 'em. We do high school games. Of course, we don't pick our own game, but we do high school games. The loser has to bring snacks to the Sunday meeting. So if you're the low man on the totem pole, you got to bring, ice cream bars or chips and dip or something just small. And then we've actually did a coaches fantasy league. And so I don't have enough time to watch. I'm probably getting murdered, but it's kind of fun. It brings up camaraderie. The years that you're winning, it's a lot of fun. The years that you're losing, at least it kind of gives you a little reprieve, from how rough and long that season can become. So
for sure.
Long answer what you're saying, but we're kind of in the middle. You can tell you and I are in the middle of football season because we have tan faces from below our eye circles down and from my eyebrows up where my sunglasses go.
I wear a hat but then I end up with this thing, right? I'm tan here to here, and then top is no go. So yeah. I'm with you, man. That's just the price we pay. It's the price we pay to go out and do the thing. I've never seen Pick'em before. The staff that I'm volunteering with does that, and it seems to be a lot of fun. Yeah, it's like $1 a game or something. So there's a monetary value, but it's not enough to matter and not going to hurt anybody. And
right,
it's pretty neat. So
we do food, and so far our youngest coach had to bring it twice in a row. So he's starting to, it's not a big deal. Probably whatever little snacks he can go pick up and bring, but it's fun. It makes it interesting too, because we'll come in, Friday night, hopefully after a win, and then we come in and look at the board and see who did well as we're looking up different scores. And I find that I always tease them. I said the coaches with the most time on their hands usually win.
Right, because they can do this research.
Because I don't even know. I'm just writing up there. Unless we've played the team, I have no idea.
Yeah. You mentioned it's all levels of football are going. It's been a great football weekend. NFL week 1 finally jumping off. We got to go to our first Sooners game this year, so that's what we spent yesterday doing, which was a blast. SMU put up a good fight, man. It was a good game to be at. Good. I'm glad I didn't go to a 73-0 drubbing from the week before. That would have been. I guess it's fun to watch your favorite team win, but man, at some point it's like everything's winning. There's no controversy. There's nothing. So it's been a great football weekend. You meant the weather as well, man. It's cooling off outside. I think we're in the highs like 75 the rest of the week. Lows are supposed to be in the 60s when I get up. I can feel the chill. It's gonna be great. So
that's pumped about that. When that weather hits, you kind of know these games get a little more serious. Yep. And we're kind of right now we're doing well. We're 3-0. Our team is, and so have had a good opening, but conference starts and it's all starts over. Right. And so that cold weather, those are the games that You don't really see a lot of banners hanging up with people wearing like t-shirts and shorts. Usually it's a toboggan and a hoodie and a jacket, because those are the games that you're going to remember.
That's the ones that matter. That's right. Yep. So, yep, I'm excited to get into. We're on bye week varsity this week. We do have
There
our two
too.
freshman games, and we're gonna. Those are tomorrow night, Monday night, and Tuesday night. So that should be a ton of fun. Both at home, so I don't have to drive anywhere this week. Finally, those 7:30 kickoffs on an away game, back to back nights,
Yeah.
and then trying to be there for the varsity game. But man, that can put it on you. So
Yeah, we
my
and we
football
drive our
season.
kids, so I think my wife is the one who has to do this. I don't really do much, so I say we as in she, but we are going to feed all our linemen and all our guys, anybody that's had a pancake on offense, which they all come, so you might as well cook for all the offense because they're all going to come.
Yep.
And then defense, we feed them when they do a shutout, and so we don't count. If we put in our twos or our threes or our JV, we're not going to hold them accountable for that. And so we've had two close to shutouts. I think we had one held them to 3 points last week. So I think we're feeding those guys Thursday. It's that bye week where you kind of, and we could do a whole podcast on that. How do you handle a bye week? Because there's
Yep.
really there's no like rule on what you're supposed to do. We try to have fun with our bye week, to let them rest and recover, and then try to get about 2 good practices in. We'll get 3 total, but 2 where we get after it just a bit, just to kind of keep ourselves in shape. But man, it's tough on those. I don't know what y'all are doing, but it's tough to know how much do you bang against each other, because you do want to use it to heal up, but you don't want to. We got some momentum going right now. I think y'all do too. You don't want to lose that either. So
Right.
it's kind of a juggling act there.
You're right, because it's always like, do we keep everything the same? Are we, because that's continuity, or that everything's the copy and paste is how you win football games. I feel like, right? It's just you don't start doing a bunch of stuff different if it's winning. So it'll be interesting to see. It's one of those times I'm on the outside looking in, so I'll just kind of see how the staff handles it and what all that looks like. But, well, here we go with our second attempt on this sponsored ad recording. So I'm gonna say, Coach Simpson, why don't you tell us how to simplify football for our coaches, for our players, maybe for our fans? I don't know. Like sometimes I feel like the fans need to learn football too.
Coaching 101 podcast is sponsored by Findaway Productions. Findaway Productions also sponsors fbcoachsimpson.com for all your coaching needs, with over 30 coaching materials, books, as well as 50 PowerPoints and videos and smaller materials, and the free magazine headsets. Findaway Productions also sponsors offensivecoordinatoracademy.com, all things offense, and defensivecoordinatoracademy.com, all things defense. Findaway Productions is proud to sponsor Coaching 101 podcast.
This episode is brought to you by Athletic Speed and Movement. At athleticspeedmovement.com, we've taken Del Basquet's 45 years of speed and movement training and put it all in one place just for you. You can get the same training that NFL players have been getting for years, collegiate players have been getting for years, and now high schools across the nation are paying thousands of dollars to bring Dell in to install his system, but we've got it online for you. It's time to help your team become faster, not just in the 40, not just their sprint speed, but between the tackles and their cuts while they're chasing down the quarterback. It's time for you to help them become faster everywhere. Jump over to athleticspeedmovement.com. There's an orange button there. Just click it. It says, get the keys to playing faster. Check it out, athleticspeedmovement.com. All right, so let's jump right in here with part number 1, and that's we're talking big rivalries. Oh, I hate that word. Jewelry and rivalries. Those are the words that get me. So what does define a rivalry, Coach?
Oh, there's a lot of different things. To me, I think the whole podcast is on big games. And so there are lots of flavors of big games. You have big games that are big because they're elimination games, like a big game where it's a playoff game, or for a championship, or for a spot in the playoffs, or whatever that might be. Those are big games. I think I'm going to kind of focus this answer on big games because of maybe the opponent you're playing and what most people would call a rivalry. So when you're playing a rivalry game, generally that's a game that's either among teams that are really close together. Like we played a team for the first time ever, but they're 5 minutes away from our school. So that's a natural rivalry. The kids all know each other. The coaches all know each other. The fans all know each other. It's a big rivalry kind of game. And then there are rivals that you play every year and you might have some history with, where you've won some big games against them. they've won some big games against you. Maybe it's gotten pretty heated. We've had rivalry games against teams. We just beat a team that I'd consider a rival last weekend. They're 45 minutes away. We're 5A and they're 4A now, but forever we were both in the same class and played each other every year. And those games, I thought they were always a well-coached team. Their kids played hard. Our kids played hard. We try to coach them halfway decent. And so it's always a pretty competitive kind of game. But that's usually, when I think of a rivalry, those are the two criteria: either a really close team, and you need to win those games, especially in today's world where kids are able to transfer pretty much at will, depending on what state you're in. You need to own your area. Kind of look at like a college. Like if Arkansas plays Arkansas State, they better win that game, because that's a huge game for them. We played a team 5 minutes down the road. We need to win that game so that kids that are coming up through this area know that we are the football program. So those are big games. Even if maybe the team you're playing isn't as talented, you need to treat that like a big game, because potentially that could be a place where kids might come to your program, or you might lose kids from your program to their program. And I'm not just talking about current players. Fourth graders, fifth graders, sixth graders that are growing up watching this need to think you're the place to go. So those are huge games. Then the other one, the rivalries, where it's a constant battle back and forth, those are more for you and the fans and your kids. There's a different impact on them, just because like no kid's going to go drive 3 hours to go to some school way down the road. But those are the games you kind of circle, when the schedule comes out. Everybody knows that's going to be a big game. Generally, those games have some kind of implication. A lot of times we've played multiple games here with trophies on the line. If you win this, you get a trophy, or you win this, you get a this, or you win this, you get whatever. Those are games you need to win, because those are games where your fans look forward to those. You look forward to those at the end of the year. We've had a couple of those. We had one last year where it was a big trophy game for us. Before that, we played a different school with a trophy on the line. And those are the games, to me, every game matters, but those games tend to matter a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, there's a immediately recorded history of the outcome of that game year after year, right? It's on the trophy usually. If not, then they know who's holding on to the trophy. So yeah, you better win it, because if someone's etching it in brass to put it back on the side of the trophy, that's a pretty big deal. Versus, there's some teams you may not know what your record is against them. I have no idea. I played them here and there or whatever. Even if you played them annually, you may not know. But if you're etching it in the side of a trophy, you better win that game. You don't want your name to just not be there. I think there's some games, if you go to the collegiate level and look, and you talked about locale versus teams that just are very good competition. We look at, let's just take OU, OSU, right? So I'm here in Oklahoma. I'm a Sooners fan. The Cowboys have been up north. They're in Stillwater. And for different people, that's considered a rivalry game. It was Bedlam. We've played for 110 years or whatever now. But the winning percentage is very lopsided. It's got to be 80% or more in favor of the Sooners, right? So it starts making, like, is it really a rivalry game just because we play it every year? Yeah, in the last 15 or 20 years, it's been a little closer, right? It's been, OSU's pulled off some upsets, but there's streaks of like many, many years where they were not ever going to be in that game. So you have, that geographical thing does matter. I live here in Jay, Oklahoma. The Jay Bulldogs every year play Grove from up the road. It's called the Delco Bowl. We're here in Delaware County in Oklahoma. The Ridge Runners and Jay used to be the same size school, and now they're 2 classes apart. And I'm not so sure that they aren't getting further apart. Grove seems to be growing. I don't know that Jay is. So, Grove really could be a 6A2 school in the next few years. And here's Jay at a 3A school. But every year they play. And I mean, as a person that lives in Jay, like, I just feel like we know who's going to win that game basically every year. And if you pull the upset as Jay, you've done an amazing thing. We've even, in coaching circles discussed, like, is that one of those games that if you took the job that you just have to cancel it? Like, we're losing players to injuries because they have so much more talent. Their kids are that much bigger, right? I mean, I know everyone loves it. It's the Delco Bowl, but if you lose 2 starters and now your district games are on the line, or they're you're likely to lose games there or whatever. You're getting started shorthanded because of this rivalry game that you've won 2 of in 40 years, whatever it is. I don't know the exact numbers, guys. It may be more than that, but it's like, at what point do you just say, I know we do this every year, but it's getting out of hand. But then, like last Friday was Delco Bowl, and Grove had to kick a field goal at the end to win it by 1. So I mean, Jay almost knocks them off again. So it's like one of those, like, if they can ever pull the win, it's great, and they almost make a monument to it each time. But there's also
And
that.
and like I said, you get to think about building a fence around your program, because there's only a limited amount of athletes depending on where you are. So I don't know your areas, but let's just say there's 40 really good football players in each class. Well, if you can prove that you're the place to be, and you do that by winning those kinds of games,
Right.
most of those kids, if they're younger or they have a choice, you might get them. And so I think that's the danger. That's why you see those streaks happen. Why do you see a 40-game streak? Well, Oklahoma, no offense to Oklahoma State, is kind of thought of as the football power instead of Oklahoma State. At least that's the way it has been in most recent times. So if you're a recruit wanting to go to a school, which one do you pick? Well, you're going to pick Oklahoma. And that's why those games, to me, take on that extra importance. It's a chance for you, especially if you're the underdog. So if you're the favorite, those rivalry games may not be as fun because you have a lot to lose. If you're the underdog, that's your chance to kind of make a statement. And I think those are big games as we kind of talk about. I'll do other big games too as we talk tonight, but in that rivalry world, those are really important games. I think if you asked our fans at my current school, what was their favorite moment of our season last year, and we had a lot of firsts last year, they would say beating our rival school.
Yeah.
And I would say, if you asked them what our fans, not my kids and me, but what our fans' goal is, they would say they want to do that again. Where our goals might be more in line, like you mentioned, go to playoffs, make some noise in there, do all these other things. But for the community, a lot of times the number one thing is that game.
Yeah. I think a lot of rivalries can be based around, not to say a lot of, some of them can be based around, if you're constantly getting in the playoffs, but the same team keeps knocking you out, or, one of those two teams wins it every, like, it's just, you can start building that rivalry based on, it's no one in our district, or maybe you just have one there as well. But once we get to where the games matter, like win or go home, it's always these two teams, right? You can kind of build that rivalry there. Right. So let's move on to the second part here, Coach. And why do some teams do so well with these big games?
There's not just some secret formula, but I'll give you a couple tips that we've tried to always keep with our kids. Is one, we try to look one game at a time. And these are coaches' cliches that everyone's heard, but can you really do it? So like, we have a huge rivalry game coming up week 9. Well, we're in week 3 right now. So we're not even thinking about week 9. I'm not even talking about it. We're not letting our kids talk about it. Our fans sure are, and theirs are too, I'm sure. But we don't want our kids to even think about that. We want to think about this week and the next week. And so when that game week comes up, it is now a normal game week, as normal as possible. Because that's your goal as a coach in those rivalry games, is to keep the week as normal as possible. When you start being different, doing a lot of different things, that's when you start to kind of ratchet up the pressure that's already there. Like, there's already a lot of pressure in those games. We played a game here last year. I don't want to just reference one game. We've been in a lot of rivalry games, but last year we had a rivalry game here, first time we'd ever played a team. So our town is only probably, 30,000 combined with us in the town that we played. Like, we're kind of the suburb off of it. And there were about 10,000 people at that game. And so the pressure is going to be there anyway. You don't want to feed into that any more than you have to. So you want to feed into staying calm. Things are the same as they've always been. Let's not get involved in any arguments on social media. So as a head coach, that's the kind of stuff you're doing. And then your scheme wise, we had been putting a little more time into that during the off season. We couldn't do it during the season. We don't have time to do it then. But during the off season, summer, knowing we had that game, there were some things that we kind of knew we were going to do that week, because there are some things you want to bring out in those big games to attack those kind of teams. We also tried to play into kind of the chip on your shoulder, whether you're the favorite or not. Lie to your kids if you have to, but make them feel like, hey, we're the underdog and the pressure's all on them. We want confidence, but you shouldn't feel pressure, because we want you to go out in these kind of games and just perform aggressively and just perform your normal ability. And don't try to do extra. Don't try to do less. Just be what you've been all season long, because traditionally, the reason all these rivalry games, you see these massive upsets, is if you're the favorite, especially, that pressure will get to you, especially the game you think you're supposed to beat somebody really bad, and all of a sudden it's close when you didn't think it should be close. And then one bad thing goes to another, goes to another, goes to another. So keeping everything calm, I would say, is the number one goal. Keeping everything routine is the number two goal. And then as a coaching staff, you understand they're going to emulate you. So if they can feel that you feel the pressure, or they can feel that you're nervous, they're going to be nervous.
Yeah.
That's just kind of how it is. And everyone's nervous for every game. I get it. But there's a difference when you go into those kind of games, those kind of atmospheres. And it may not be a rivalry game. This could be a playoff game. This could be a state championship game. This could be fill in the blank with whatever your situation is game. Your kids are going to feed off of you. And I've always, probably about 5 or 6 years ago, we started having a lot of success at Southside. Just said, hey, win or lose, I want to be aggressive. In the moment, I want to be aggressive. I don't want to wait for the team to make a mistake and hope they let me win. We want to do what it takes to help ourselves win and not look for help. Sometimes in those rivalry games, the more aggressive play calling, the more aggressive defense, the more aggressive special teams, that team usually has more success because they're on the offense. They're trying to cause things to happen, where the team that's a little more reserved or nervous or whatever it is tends to struggle. It's not always there's no perfect formula. Ultimately, players are going to win games. And so, in those moments, just try to be as calm and as normal as you can would be the only advice I really have for somebody.
I remember when I was in probably like junior high, our rival from down in South Central Oklahoma, I can't remember the story exactly, but essentially someone poured axle grease all over the other team's game field. And then one of them maybe went over and like spray painted some stuff on the other person's games. So it's just like that. I feel like that's something you have to avoid, is get away from that. It would probably never fly in today's world anyway, because we're all so legal happy, right? We always want to involve the law. We can't just go, yeah, you got us, we'll get you next time, But so there would be like someone would probably go to jail for those same actions these days, unfortunately. But just keeping your kids out of bad situations like that. I mean, yeah, there's going to be some rivalry week. God, I hate that word. Shenanigans, right? It's like senior day. You're going to have a prank. You have senior pranks, even though they're always in bad taste. Like, you're going to have them. So you're going to have the same thing on these weeks. Maybe just trying to figure out what they're going to be, so you can just kind of put up some boundaries, some left and right limits. Like, I can't micromanage all of you. There's too many. And not to mention the non-players, the kids in the school that just want to take part in this ridiculous week, these shenanigans going on. So I think just controlling the controllables there. Probably don't want to give away a bunch of, I'm going to say billboard material, but that's not the right word. But you just don't want them to have anything they can, put up in the locker room to give them that chip on their shoulder. Right?
Social media has raised that to another level. I know, we had again, I keep referencing it because it's recent, but there's a lot of rivalry where there was some social media stuff thrown out both ways, probably. But I don't think anyone was a football kid on either side, but
right.
Like you mentioned, stay out of that. We don't need anything to do with that stuff. And then we won the game. And so then there was more stuff thrown out. And it was like, hey, stay out of that. So as a coach, I feel like that's kind of what you do. And then you have these other issues, like here's a real life issue. We had this last rivalry game. So, those teams that will punt, like during pregame, they punt the ball and then they circle up. Well, they punted the ball right onto our midfield logo. The kid caught the ball. They circle up there and said some rather inappropriate things towards our kids. Of course, I'm right there because I'm over there watching our kids and hearing all of this. And then I call up with a not a nice word to those guys. I'll just kind of keep it at that. And so the inside of you is the anger. I could feel it, the heat coming up my neck of how dare them do this. And I would imagine our kids feel it too. And what we did was we calmed them down, because we're not going to back down from that, but we're also not going to rise up to that level. Like, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to bait you into acting foolish. Let's make sure we focus on the game. And I think a lot of times in those rivalry games, stuff like that happens and it just gets heated. And all of a sudden you're out of sorts. You're not playing like you normally would play, because everybody is, at a level 10 when you need to try to keep them down there as low as possible.
Yeah, especially in a 11-man game, right? There's a little bit like baseball on offense. Maybe a guy can go out and be heated and he strikes out and just fine, it goes to the next kid. But when it takes all 11 to be successful anyways, even if one of them gets too high or too low because of the situation,
right?
Now you're seeing team failure due to that one kid's, inability to perform under pressure or whatever it happens to be.
Well, I'll go one step farther. If I know you have a kid that doesn't handle that well, we will intentionally push that button. Yeah. We're going to push that button to that work. Okay, we'll push it on this kid and we'll push it on that kid. We're not going to be dirty or inappropriate, but we're going to, whatever advantage we can find, we're going to try to find in those kinds of games, because you know them. This is a team you probably know, and so that's kind of the deal of we tell our kids to be the irritant, but not the reactor. In any game we go in, but especially those.
There's a psychological game going on too. I mean, it's the game within the game, right? Like, you got to win your one-on-ones and you can't lose the psychological game either. Coach Spigner has let me know it is bulletin board material, because I cannot, for whatever reason, remember that word tonight either. So yeah, don't give away a bunch of bulletin board material. Thank you, Coach, for chiming in there and reminding me. We'll push on to the third part here, and it's just how to stay calm. So what are you doing as the leader, as the, you said it, your kids are going to feed off of whatever aura you're giving off. They're going to take that and run with it. So, how are you making sure that you stay calm? How are you being that example in the room for them?
Well, a lot of it's perspective, which I'm going to get into here at the end. We talk about what not to do as a coach. So I've done a lot of these things wrong, and that's where I'm coming from. So if you guys are hearing me, that's because I've screwed up a lot of these in the past, but keep your perspective. This is a game. You are getting paid to coach a game. You're getting paid. Your kids are getting to play a sport they enjoy. And sometimes we, especially in the South, I don't know about Oklahoma, but I think they're probably pretty close. Especially in the South, football becomes almost like a religion, and it becomes more than it probably should be. And that's perpetrated a lot of times by us as coaches, because we kind of make it more than it should be. So your kids feed off of that, and your kids think it's more than it should be, and they have a real hard time with that pressure. So a lot of times in these rivalry weeks, or these big games, these elimination games, these playoff games, these conference championship games, fill in the blank, you need to take the time to enjoy what you're doing. A lot of times in those moments, a coach is more miserable than any other time. I know I'm already starting to feel it this year. It's a fight every single year that you fight, of just the pressure of winning and doing things right. And you forget, we need to be enjoying what we're doing right now. We need to have our kids be relaxed. We want our kids to have a good time, not be so uptight about making a mistake. Again, that probably comes back down to that's my general theory of coaching anyway. But these militaristic kind of approaches, when you get to those rivalry games, that pressure is so high for those kids. Only so many kids are going to be able to succeed in that. Or if you can keep it, hey, we want to win and we're going to do everything we can possibly do to win. And there's no excuses being made there. But we understand that at the end of the day, this is a game. At the end of the day, that we've got a lot more important things than, I tell my kids, if the highlight of your life is a game that you played when you were 17 or 18, you have a pretty pathetic life.
Yeah.
And we want you to kind of have that mindset of, hey, I'm not saying it's not important. And I'm not saying you're not going to have lifelong friends, and but you're going to go do things that are so much more important than this.
You should.
You
Hopefully.
should. We want you to. That's our goal for you as a player, is that this is not the highlight of your life. This is a part of your life that makes you who you're going to be down the road. And so I think trying to keep things in that perspective help a whole lot when you get to these big games, whether that be a rivalry game, whether that be an elimination game, whether that be whatever that is. At the end of the year, all we want our kids to be able to say is that they gave all they had, they prepared as best they could, and that they did the best they could for their friends. And that's, if you can do that, then you say, then who cares what the scoreboard says? Who cares? The hard part is actually meaning that. Like, that's the hard part. The easy part is to say that. The hard part is to mean that. And your kids that takes time for your kids to recognize that you actually mean that. Like, our kids know if we win, that I'm probably going to blister them, because I'm going to find everything we did wrong to kind of keep us balanced. And if we lose, we're going to probably err more towards the good things that came out of that game, because our goal is to keep our kids kind of balanced, not too high and not too low. It doesn't mean you're going to win those big games, but it will give you a much better shot. At least your kids will perform as well as they can possibly perform.
Yep. You said, saying things and meaning things are completely different, and one is much harder. I think back to all the coaches that always told us when we lost a game and you take a knee on the field and they're like, I still think you're the better team. Or what's the other really good one? I feel like I've heard I lost a lot of games in my days. I'd still rather have you guys than them. And I'm like, would you, coach? Would you really? Because they're going to go to the state playoffs and maybe go win a championship, right? But, the more I've gotten into coaching, the more absolutely they meant it. They probably meant it every single time, right? The time, they love these kids. Yeah, we all want more weapons. We all want to go over and we would love to have the more successful team, but not given to us. I don't want it gifted to me. I don't want to show up and be like, hey, well, we won the state championship last 3 years and you're the new guy. Congratulations. Not much of a challenge for you. But if you take over a, 0-10 team or a 4-6 team or whatever, and now you're going out and making success at your ceiling, that is a lot better. And you would rather have that, I feel like, as a coach. But yeah, staying calm. I feel like it is exactly what you said, Coach. It's that even kill, being honest with your players. You can't go in the week being the favorites and act like, oh, these guys have a fighting chance, right? It's got to be about, look, we're favored for a reason. We're the better team. But if you go out there and play that way, if you don't take care of business, if you don't do little things right, they absolutely can sneak up on you, right? I mean, there's no reason in the world the Jay Bulldogs this year should have been, I think it was 48-49 or something. I don't know. Somebody else correct me on that score last night. But there's no reason they should be able to play up 2 classes and still have that kind of success. But that's what happens in football. That's why we play every game, right? You don't give the state championship in August at kickoff because paper says this team is number 1. Those upsets happen all the time. So if you go with the mentality, oh, they can't touch us, we're bulletproof, then you better be expecting it. And so I feel like that's it, honesty. And if you're on the other side of the coin, if you're the team that's going and you don't have really a chance, I mean, you have a slugger's chance and that's it. You got to find a knockout play somewhere. Be honest with them and let them know that, right? And prepare that way. Look, every play has got to be fundamentally sound because we don't know where our knockout punch is going to come from. It might be counter on play 1 of the game, or it might be a screen in the third quarter that, and you're down 14. And if you don't have a successful drive here, you're giving the ball back and they start eating that clock. And we know how that goes, especially in high school football with, smaller game time. So, I think either way, just being honest, let them know what is the actual situation. What do you really need to be going? There's going to be kids that turn down no matter what you do. If you go in and say, hey, we're supposed to lose this by 21, and it's a real possibility, there's kids who be like, oh, okay, this week doesn't matter, and they may not take it serious, and that's testing you as a coach. Vice versa, if you're supposed to win it by 21, there's kids who are not going to pay attention to practice, right? They're not going to be locked in because we've got this one in the bag. once again testing you as a coach. So I feel like there's not a lying to. I know you said earlier, put a chip on their shoulders. Even if you got to
No,
lie
we
to
try
them,
to.
I understand that, but I'm not gonna BS my team. And unfortunately, until this year, I've never been on a team that had the puncher's chance really. And so we were just honest with them, like it's gonna be a battle. And if you go out and lay down and let them physically take over the game in the first drive, that's going to be the night. It's up to you, right?
We try to spend a lot of time just focusing on us. And I think that's, I picked that up probably about 7 or 8 years ago where, we don't control our opponents. We've opened this season, we're 3-0. We don't control who we played.
Right.
And then we may play down the road, we may pick up 2 or 3 teams that they're really, really good. Like in Arkansas, the 5A state champ just beat the 7A state champ. So if we're blessed enough to play long enough, we're going to get to play them. And so you have to understand in those games, we're not going to focus on them. We're going to focus on what is the best that we could possibly do. Whether that's a team we should beat by 40 or a team that maybe should beat us by 40. We're going to focus on what can we do and how can we handle that. Because in life, that's all you can control anyway, is what can I do, not these horrible circumstances. And our kids really relate to that. Like they relate to, some of y'all were born in some horrible circumstances. Some of y'all were born with a silver spoon in your mouth. But none of that matters, when you cross the white lines and you come play a game of football. Nobody cares. Nobody cares how talented you are, how rich you are, what race you are, how smart you are. No one cares. Just control your effort inside of these lines. And if you can do that, then you can expand that into other things in life. So we try to focus a lot on that. It's helped quite a bit because, like you said, we can be honest. We can be honest that this team's really talented, or this team, you should be able to handle this team. But again, what's our focus on? And I have our kids repeat, our focus is on us. That's all we're worried about.
Yep. Well, Coach, I think that brings us to the end of that. We have a what not to do as a coach section here. It wasn't filled out on the sheet, so I was a little hesitant to even bring it up. Maybe you didn't want to do one tonight, but we're going to knock one out. So whatever you got for what not to do as a coach here.
Yeah, I'd say what not to do as a coach is place so much value on one game. A lot of times as a coach, there's that one game we all want back. I think if you interviewed Bill Belichick right now, I think the greatest coach of all time, you could say maybe Nick Saban for high school or college. Name the coach, name whoever it is, and there's a game or probably a lot of games they would want to go back and redo. I know I've got a whole list of them. What you can't do is put so much importance on one game that you ruin everything else. And so we've been talking about that big game. I don't know what that big game is for you. If you want it, you got to move on quickly. If you want it, you got to move on to the next one quickly. If you lost it, you got to move on to the next one quickly. And again, we model this for our kids. So today's lesson on what not to do as a coach is to let one loss or one win in these big games linger. It can't linger, because if it does linger, it's going to be problems for you down the road. And a lot of times as a coach, usually we don't think about the wins, we think about the losses, but there's a reason they call them trap games.
Yeah.
You pick a team like Miami Dolphins, who's had a huge win against the Chargers, it's going to be really hard to get up for next Sunday. That's just how it is. And how do they handle that is going to determine a lot of how their season goes. So as a coach, same deal for you. The big games, win or lose, you got to move on quickly, because if you don't, your kids won't.
Yep, I think it's the same number of ones added to the win and loss column, right? You don't get 2 wins for winning a big game, so and you don't take 2 losses. You may get a
contract extension or a raise, but you don't get an extra win added on.
Absolutely. Awesome, Coach. Well, we will start signing out here then. Social media wise, I am over at Twitter, or now the X. I'm not sure which one. I hope Elon picks back with Twitter because X is weird. But at Coach Chambo, okay. You can email me at chamberlainfootballconsulting@gmail.com. I'm a school teacher, so I'm in front of a computer screen. If you need help with anything football or program or new coach, old coach, whatever, hit me up. We can talk. My biology class will probably be glad that I have something to do besides talk to them all day. Coach Simpson, where can we find you at on social media?
Everything for me is FB Coach Simpson. So at FB Coach Simpson, I'm just going to keep calling it Twitter. fbcoachsimpson@gmail.com. If you're in Facebook, you can go find me in a lot of those Facebook groups under my name, and you go to the website, fbcoachsimpson.com. So everything is kind of in that same world.
Absolutely. And the podcast is on Twitter/X over at Coaching 101 Pod. I want to thank you for being a listener to this Coaching 101 podcast. We hope you join us next week as we continue to make the complex more simple. Please consider subscribing to the show so you'll always know when the new episodes are out. We'll leave you with this. It's hard to beat someone who never gives up. No matter the situation, find a way.